You know that ever-dreaded mountain of papers piling up on your desk? Yep, I see you nodding. We've all had those late-night grading marathons. Coffee in one hand, red pen in the other, stacks of assignments as far as the eye can see. The worst part? The nagging temptation to speed through it all just to reclaim some semblance of free time. But let's be real. Rushing is not an option when quality is at stake, especially for us in the language education field. Providing accurate, helpful feedback is critical for our students' journey towards comprehension and fluency in a second language. So what if I told you that there's a lifeline to pull you out of this grading abyss? Intrigued? You should be. In today's video, I'm zeroing in on the top 5 ways to reduce grading time without sacrificing quality. So grab that coffee, set that red pen down for a minute, and hit that play button. We're about to make your grading process a whole lot more manageable while keeping your feedback on point. My name is Scott, and you're watching Immediate Immersion, where we're all about comprehension-based instruction in the modern language classroom. We'll be right back. First off, what exactly are rubrics? Think of them as your grading cheat sheet, a set of criteria or guidelines that standardize how you assess student work. They're like the roadmap you never knew you needed for grading. With a well-designed rubric, you can clearly define what excellent, good, and needs improvement really look like for any given task. And for us language teachers, it's an absolute game changer when evaluating everything from vocabulary usage to conversational fluency. No more second guessing or inconsistency. It's all laid out right there in front of you. Now, you might be thinking, Scott, that sounds great, but how do I even start? Trust me, it's easier than you think. The key is aligning the rubric with your learning objectives. If you're grading an oral presentation, for example, your rubric categories might include pronunciation, vocabulary, and overall comprehension. For a written assignment, you could focus on grammar structure and clarity. Once you've identified these criteria, you'll assign point values or grades to different levels of performance within each category. Presto, you've got yourself a rubric that's ready to roll out with your next assignment. And here's the real kicker. The benefits are twofold. On one hand, you're dramatically cutting down on grading time. You've got this ready-made framework so you're not agonizing over each grade. On the other hand, rubrics are an invaluable resource for your students. When they know exactly what you're looking for, they're better equipped for self-assessment and focused improvement. It demystifies the grading process, making it transparent and far less intimidating. So let's talk tech. I know some of us have a love-hate relationship with technology in the classroom, but hear me out. There are some genuinely helpful tools out there that can make your grading life easier. Ever tried Turnitin or Gradescope? They're like the Swiss Army knives of grading software. Turnitin, for example, is super handy for plagiarism checks, while Gradescope can automate grading multiple choice or fill-in-the-blank questions. You set the parameters once, and these platforms take care of the rest. It's definitely not perfect, but it's a huge time saver for those more straightforward tasks. And since we're all about comprehension-based language instruction here, let's not forget about the specialized tech tools geared towards that. Tools like Quizlet for vocabulary or VoiceThread for oral assignments can really streamline the feedback process. And they're more than just flashy gadgets. These platforms offer valuable analytics that can help you pinpoint where your students are struggling or excelling. But let's not stop there. There's a whole world of apps that focus solely on second language acquisition, providing insightful metrics that can guide your instruction and assessment strategies. Now, before we all jump on the tech bandwagon, let's pump the brakes for a second. Technology is fantastic, but it's not a replacement for the nuanced understanding and feedback that you, as an experienced language teacher, can provide. Automated tools can catch a grammar mistake, but they can't grasp the subtleties of language and culture that we're aiming to instill in our students. So by all means, leverage tech to streamline your grading, but never let it fully take the wheel. Your expertise is irreplaceable. Okay, let's shift gears and chat about something that's a bit of an unsung hero in the assessment game: peer and self-assessment. These aren't just buzzwords, they're legit strategies that can be super effective in the language classroom. Here's how it goes down. For peer assessment, students evaluate each other's work using a rubric or a set of guidelines that you provide. For self-assessments, students use those same guidelines to judge their own work. Simple, right? But it gets better. You can use this for everything from written assignments to oral presentations. Even comprehension-based exercises like listening tasks. Now, why should we bother with this? 2 words: time and engagement. On the time-saving front, you're not the only one doing the heavy lifting anymore. Your students are actively participating in the grading process, giving you a bit more breathing room. But the real magic happens with the students themselves. This approach gets them deeply involved in their learning. They're not just passively waiting for a grade. They're assessing, reflecting, and engaging with the material on a metacognitive level. That's gold, especially in the realm of second language acquisition, where self-awareness can be a huge asset. Of course, I can hear the skeptics among us asking, but Scott, how do we make sure they're doing it right? That's a valid point. Peer and self-assessment can go awry if not managed well. So here are a couple of tips. Clear guidelines. Use a well-defined rubric. Yes, the same one you would use. This sets the standard for what to look for in an assignment. Anonymous review. In peer assessment, anonymity can often lead to more honest feedback. Spot checks. Don't just take their word for it. Do occasional spot checks to validate the assessments and ensure they're on point. You know that feeling of dread that creeps in when you see a mountainous project looming on your grading desk? Yeah, we've all been there. Massive assignments are not just intimidating for students, they're a complete bear to grade. You're looking at every detail from content and structure to grammar and vocabulary, and it feels like you're trying to summit Everest. Exhausting and time-consuming. It's a lot, especially when we're talking about complex language assignments where you're assessing multiple aspects like syntax, usage, and idiomatic expressions. So what's the solution? Break it down. Chunk that monster into smaller, more digestible pieces. For example, let's say you've got a major research project. You could start by grading just the outline, then move on to the introduction, followed by individual sections, and so on. Each chunk becomes its own mini assignment, allowing you to focus your attention and feedback more precisely. Plus, it gives students the chance to implement your feedback step by step, leading to a better final product. Trust me, it's a win-win. But Scott, does breaking it down compromise the quality of my feedback? Not at all. In fact, it can enhance it. When you're not overwhelmed by the volume of what you're grading, you're more likely to give detailed, targeted feedback that students can actually use. You're catching issues early on and giving students the chance to correct course before the final submission. Think of it as a series of quality control checkpoints. So you're not just making your life easier, you're also setting your students up for greater success. Ready to up your assessment game even further? If you found value in today's video, then you're not going to want to miss our upcoming Assessment Academy. We're diving deep, way deeper than we could ever go in a short YouTube video. I'm talking comprehensive modules, hands-on exercises, and expert insights tailored specifically for language educators like us. So if you're serious about taking your assessments to the next level, while still having time to actually live your life, head on over to mm.us/academy and secure your spot. Trust me, it's the next step in transforming the way you evaluate your students' comprehension and language skills. See you there. All right, let's dive into another grading strategy that can be a real game changer: batch grading. So what's the deal with this? Imagine you're in a cooking show, and instead of prepping each dish start to finish, you're chopping all your onions at once, then all your carrots, and so on. Same concept here. Instead of grading a full assignment from student A, then moving to student B's entire assignment, you grade all the introductions first, all the second paragraphs next, and so on. The point? Efficiency. When you're in the zone of looking for the same criteria, your brain doesn't have to switch gears as often, making the process quicker. The nuts and bolts are pretty straightforward. Let's say you've got a stack of essays to grade. Pick the first element you want to focus on. Maybe it's the thesis statement. Go through each essay grading just the thesis statements. Once you're done, move on to the next element like paragraph structure or vocabulary usage. The key is to tackle one thing at a time across the whole batch. This is especially helpful when you're dealing with language assignments that can have a myriad of elements to look for, like verb tenses or thematic consistency. Now, one caveat. Batch grading can make it easy to slip into autopilot. To avoid that, here are a couple of tips. Take short breaks. After each batch, take a 5-minute break. Stretch, grab a coffee, do whatever you need to reset. Rotate categories. If you find yourself getting too accustomed to one aspect, switch it up. Maybe alternate between content and language criteria to keep your mind active. Review once done. After you've completed all batches, do a quick review to ensure consistency that you didn't miss anything. All right, folks, we've covered some serious ground today. We've tackled rubrics, tech tools, peer assessments, and more, all aimed at making your grading life a whole lot easier without compromising quality. I know, it's a lot to take in, but remember, the goal is to give you back some of that precious time. After all, we didn't get into teaching to become a professional paper graders, right? We're here to foster comprehension, inspire a love for language, and maybe, just maybe, free up some time to enjoy our own lives too. If you're keen to go even deeper, don't forget to check out our Assessment Academy. It's the ultimate deep dive into the world of language assessments, tailored for folks who are just as passionate about teaching as you and I are. You can register at mm.us/academy. So go ahead. Implement some of these strategies and let me know how it goes in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe for more tips and strategies. Until next time, happy comprehensible input.